Hello. Welcome. It is that time of the month again, ladies and gentlemen, where I get to talk about Boruto 2 Blue Vortex. This month, TBV is titled Jura, Chapter 22, Jura. Now, last chapter, we saw that Sardo Uchiha has awakened her monkey Gekyo Sharingan, displaying gravitational abilities and being able to defeat Ryu. And we also saw that Boruto's desperation to save his former master Konohamaru Sensei has forced his hand to disobey Kashin Kojin's orders to stay put. Because if he did not follow his orders and stay put and not intervene on this mission, he will certainly die by Jura showing up on the battlefield after he senses Boruto's essence in the vicinity of the other Shinju's, Ryu and Moegi's Shinju, I forgot her name. So he decides to show up, save Konohamaru, and now Jura is showing up on the battlefield. So this chapter opens up directly after the Sarada crash out with her Mangekyo Sharingan. At this time, she has exhausted all of her chakra and she falls into Mitsuki's arms, where he's laying there currently, looking at the thorn bulb that was created after destroying Ryu. They are around some claw grimes, and Jura senses Boruto's presence, and he appears through one of these claw grimes. I would like to take the time to say that this panel here that I'll probably put up in the video sort of has Jura aura farming right here. I really like the design that Ikimono has for him. It reminds me of a JoJo character. Now, the next scene is Boruto and Konohamaru with the aftermath of Boruto dicing Moegi's Shinju, I forgot her name again, into little pieces. So Konohamaru's sitting there, he's like, wow, like they take the time to glaze each other a bit, because Konohamaru was able to destroy Moegi's Shinju up a bit so that Boruto can come in and deliver the finishing blow. So they sit here and they glaze each other a bit, and then out of nowhere, Jura delivers a Bijou Bomb snipe at Boruto. I'm not sure if he dodged it this time or Jura just outright missed. We know in earlier chapters, Jura was able to snipe Boruto from even farther away with great precision and be able to knock him essentially down. So maybe in this panel right here shows that he's dodging it. I can't really tell, but if he's able to dodge it, that's a sort of insane feat that I think will need a bit more explanation. But so we see that Jura is sniping them at this point. So Boruto realizes that it's time to get moving ASAP. Now Konohamaru realizes that he has the thorn bulb, and he asks Boruto that to make sure that this will be able to restore Moegi to her real form. And then Boruto replies that there's no time. He must listen to him because Jura is coming to the battlefield and he's going to start to wreck stuff. At this time, Boruto is setting up his shuriken so he's able to use Flying Raijin to teleport around the battlefield once Jura do arrive. Boruto tells Konohamaru to get that thorn bulb and to get the rest and to rendezvous back at where they started this mission before they engaged on this Shinju. You can see Boruto's desperation at this point, because at this point, Konohamaru is questioning Boruto, and Boruto basically tells him, "Hey, bro, you better shut the heck up and go right now." Like, he's yelling. I kind of like this because you don't really see Boruto yell. You can tell he's very passionate about protecting everyone, and he really needs his sensei to listen to him. Next thing you know, Jura is showing up. He's flying. He's ready to freak stuff up. Boruto grabs Konohamaru at this point and flies off using his Otsutsuki fly ability, just to dodge a Biju bomb attack from Jura that he's able to form with his eyeballs. It looks pretty cool. And he shoots it off at their location, and there's a big explosion. Boruto is able to save Konohamaru from this big explosion. He throws him down. Konohamaru catches himself on the ground. He does like a little superhero landing. It's kind of cool. And he listens to Boruto after he saws the destruction of that Biju bomb. He knows he got to get the heck up out of here. So he's running a rendezvous with the other team. Now Boruto wastes no time. He's able to get a teleport off behind Jura, and he hits him with a Rasengan that seems to do little to no damage to him. He gives him a nice back shot with the Rasengan, I would like to say. Back bent in a crescent. It's kind of marvelous. But right as he's able to get this attack off, Jura flips and shoots a Biju bomb right at Boruto, which the speed at which this is happening is so fast. You can tell because Boruto has no time to dodge this attack. So he can only use flying Raijin to be able to dodge this sort of speed. So Jura gets a crazy back shot with a regular Rasengan mid-air. He's flying through the air, quickly flips around, shoots a Biju bomb at Boruto, and Boruto's able to react and use his flying Raijin to teleport behind him once again, and he's going to try to use his sword to slash him. Jura's able to react to this feat, and he turns around and blocks the blade with his finger, with his middle finger at this. So after Boruto tried to do that, Jura takes the time to chat a little bit. He talks about how much of a nuisance the flying Raijin jutsu is, and he's sort of glazing Boruto at this point. It's an impressive jutsu, and he's sort of getting hype at this point because now he has another formidable foe to fight, just like Boruto's little sister Himawari when Jura fought Himawari with Kurama Ninetails inside of her. Now we see that Ada and Kashin Kojin is using their using their future sight and Ada's omnipotence ability to be able to watch and see what's happening in real time. So Ada's telling Kashin Kojin that it seems like he's holding his own. He really stands no chance to Jura because Kashin Kojin has instructed that Boruto will not survive if he goes there. So we're at a point of no return, essentially, is what Kashin Kojin is saying. Ada asks a really interesting question, asking why Boruto can't just teleport away from the battlefield. And Kashin Kojin informs Ada that Boruto's not able to teleport long distance because he needs to be able to teleport to something that's marked on the spot. and slash or on a object, which this is something that's limited to distance because he has to think about the object and sort of guess where it is in space-time, which he's not able to do at this point. On top of this, Kashin Kojin also informs Ada that if Boruto were to leave the battlefield, he's going to leave a very powerful opponent of Jura for Konohamaru, Sarada, which she's just exhausted at this point, Mitsuki, and Arya or Arrow, the guy with the sword, the sand ninja with the sword, Araya, I think. So basically at this point, Kashin Kojin is telling Ada that he's basically cooked. He's cooked. He's telling the audience that there's no way that he's able to win this battle. Now, back on the battlefield, Juro says to Boruto that, you know, it's time. It's time for you to pass. But before this, he wants to talk about something that's been plaguing him throughout his intellectual journey. He takes this time to interrogate Boruto about love, about this thing that we've instinctively have, even though we are so hyper intelligent. He wants to know why do people have it and what it means to Boruto. It's something that is humans' strength as well as their big weakness. So he's trying to get to the bottom of this concept from Boruto. While Jura is asking all these prying questions, philosophical questions, Boruto takes this time to assess his battle situation quickly because there's no room for error for him. He hit him with a Rasengan, he tried to slice him with his sword, and it seems to do no damage. So he is currently trying to figure out how to defeat this monster of Jura. Now, after Jura's queries, he decides it's time to lay this poor soul to rest. He starts summoning wood under the ground to sort of trap and spike Boruto. Boruto jumps around, he's flying around, he's slashing the wood. He's trying to use Usahiko, which is a technique he needs to be on the ground for, and Jura is not going to let him have 2 feet on the ground at this point. So he's flying around, he's trying to dodge his attacks, but it all means nothing when Jura is able to get an attack off and hit Boruto out of the sky while he's flying, and he falls to the ground, and Jura is able to skewer Boruto with his wood style. So at this time, Jura walks up to Boruto. He sees his sword. Boruto starts to get protective of the sword because, as we know, that this is a sword that his master gave him, Sasuke. I said that word. And he doesn't want him to break his sword, so Jura starts to tease him. He's like, well, I might freak around and break this sword. And Jura takes this time to again ask him about the concept of love and how he feels and how love is a weakness that humans have. And Boruto starts to aura farm here a bit, and he starts to talk that cash. He says, you might be right about love being a flaw and a weakness of humans. He says, but this is my opinion. He breaks free of the skewer wood style using his Uzahiko, because he's able to channel the Uzahiko through the wood style because the wood is coming from the ground. And he says that's why he will be nothing more than just a tree, because he's not able to understand why humans feel this need of love. And so he's able to land the Uzahiko on Jura by teleporting behind him using his sword, I presume. And he successfully lands the Uzahiko on Jura. Now Jura is now in a state of vertigo where he's not able to stand up. The Rasengan Uzahiko relies on the Earth's rotation, and he's able to alter the person's body's perception of that Earth's rotation. He basically, you lose all control. So you're in a suspended vertigo, and your equilibrium is essentially skewered at this point. You can't stand up, you're dizzy. But then Jura senses this power inside of him, and he's able to dispel it, because a Rasengan is essentially the same thing as a Biju bomb, which he's able to produce frequently. And he's sort of like a Jinchuriki. He's the essence of the 10 tails. This shocks Boruto, and Jura says that the Uzahiko is similar to the Biju bombs, hence he was able to nullify it. Boruto swears and he says Uzahiko doesn't even work on him, and this is the end of the chapter. Now that the chapter summary portion of this video is over, I would like to talk about my sort of final verdict of this chapter. So we get to see a lot of action in this chapter. This is a very action-packed chapter, chapter 22, Jura. And we get to see how Boruto stacks up with the heavy hitter of the series right now, of Jura. And we see how sort of helpless Boruto is in this situation. You know, his Rasengan doesn't work. His trump card at this point doesn't work. The Uzahiko. Who knows how this is going to end. Kashin Kojin knows that Boruto's going to die, and Boruto must have a plan because he knows he should die. So at this point, he's just essentially wasting time so that the others, Konohamaru, Sarada, Mitsuki, and friends, are able to escape with the Thorn Bulb. But what would happen in Boruto in this case is something that's very interesting. But back to the chapter. I think the chapter's pretty solid. Last chapter was really hype. And I think in comparison to this, I think I gave last chapter about an 8. I think this chapter may take a 7, because although, you know, there's not much dialogue that sort of pushes the narrative, there's a lot of sort of power scaling we can do in this chapter, talking about how Boruto stacks up with Jura. You see it with the techniques, and you can scale that along with Boruto's other fights through this series and Jura's other fights through this series. So we're able to learn a lot through a lot of the techniques and with the sort of actions within the fighting of this chapter, which I think is very interesting. But outside of that, we see sort of Boruto's character wanting to protect the people that he loves, and Jura's thirst for knowledge of humans so that he's able to defeat them while nullifying and learning about this thing called love. But again, I think this chapter will be a 7 out of 10 for me. Not anything crazy As far as dialogue, again, a lot of fighting, and I think that it's going to be cool to sort of speculate with the fighting. But it wasn't a bad chapter at all. It's not a sort of setup chapter. It sort of pushes along the narrative and a sort of, show it rather than tell it. So this is a chapter I think that will be one of the better episodes when the anime does get to animate this. But for the manga, this is going to be a solid 7 out of 10. Now, after the review and final verdict of the chapter, I like to talk about sort of my predictions for the next chapter while power scaling and sort of discussing sort of what happened in this chapter as a whole. Now, one of the biggest things is that, Boruto got humbled in this chapter. Boruto, in this case, is not able to keep up with Juro with his current power. Now, this means that Boruto still has a lot to learn, even though he has all this, he has Otsutsuki powers, he has future sight with catching Kojin, being able to see all the futures and being able to tailor training based on all the alternate versions of the future that he's able to see, thus making the perfect training. The thought of that being the case and seeing Boruto now, I just can't help but think how sort of weak Boruto is in this case. Like, we know from part 1 that he's not a crazy shinobi like his dad was. Like, I like to compare Boruto and Naruto as a Superman versus Batman. So Naruto is way more of your Superman. He's very durable. He has battle IQ, but he doesn't have the planning. Boruto is definitely more of a Batman. He has a tool set that he's able to utilize very intelligently with sort of his planning and prep time and his intel. And Naruto is just able to tank a lot of things with his Kurama. He has so much chakra. Boruto does not have that amount of chakra reserve, so he's going to have to tailor his kit to a lot of hacks that's going to give him an advantage so that he's able to win. As of Naruto just needs the attack power because he can basically tank anything. So we see that Uzuhiko doesn't do anything. It doesn't really do anything to the body when he's able to hit somebody with it. So it's more like a status effect internally. And we see that his Rasengan is not enough. It's interesting because in the anime he has a lot of variants of the Rasengan, and you would think that he'd use something like the high compression Rasengan that he's able to use in the anime when he is facing against more durable enemies. This is sort of a rendition of the vanishing Rasengan that he was able to make as a kid, trying to make a regular Rasengan. He was able to infuse lightning release with his Rasengan to make a Rasengan that sort of vanishes and reappears. Well, it doesn't reappear, it just vanishes and it hits a target. But the side effect of it doesn't really hit it that well. Now Boruto, in the anime, Boruto was able to make a Rasengan that instead of making it bigger, he's able to make it smaller because he was able to train with Kakashi. And Kakashi told him that he doesn't have chakra reserves like his father Naruto, so he's not going to make super giant Rasengans as the size of mountains. he's gonna be making smaller Rasengans that pack a lot more punch because he's gonna compress everything down. We haven't seen that in the anime yet, in the manga yet, so I don't know if those continuities really cross. There's a lot of differences between the anime and the manga. But, his sword doesn't work in this chapter. And Jura, I wonder why Jura missed his sniper shot in this. Now, what do I think is going to happen in the next chapter? Boruto, I don't know if Boruto's really going to die. Maybe that would be interesting if they do happen to do that, but maybe Momoshiki comes out. We haven't seen Momoshiki in a long time. Momoshiki is not going to die again. He will take over Boruto's body when he is weak and weak-willed. So Boruto needs to maintain his composure and stay strong, or all hell might break loose if Momoshiki is let loose at this point. But I think it will be very interesting. It will be really hype if we were able to see a Momoshiki manifest through Boruto in this next chapter, so we can see how he will deal with a threat like a Jura. Or maybe something else happens and maybe he gets help. Maybe Kawaki joins the fight out of nowhere. He's able to get his limiters off and be able to do some damage rather than looking like a bum ever since time skip when Boruto first meets him and suns him and asks him what has he been doing for these past handful of years, doing nothing, sitting around because he hasn't trained. So that would be interesting if Kawaki shows up and does something, tries to help and fight this foe. But another thing is if Boruto or somebody comes in to help, does Jura have another gear that he could tap into to be able to sort of combat this new level threat? I don't really know if that's sort of a possible thing at this point, because if so, Juro would just be a complete freak of nature. But I don't really know what's gonna happen. Boruto might use karma. We haven't seen karma yet, so this will be a very desperate move if we do see Boruto use karma. Maybe the reason why he's sort of stoic and he's sort of keeping his emotions in check is he knows that once he loses himself, that he will lose himself to Momoshiki. Maybe that's something that is, implied in his characters because of that point. And also him knowing sort of the stakes of, him being a singularity and his impact on the verse at this point. In conclusion here, I think this is a really good shonen chapter, meaning that, it was a really good fighting chapter. Those who love shonen and people fighting, this is going to be one of those chapters that does a solid job of doing that. This chapter and the previous chapter. I really like this chapter as well. I gave it a 7 out of 10 once again. I think if there was a bit more things narratively to push the plot further, maybe that could be something to bump up that score. But this is a solid chapter out of currently a run of really good average 7 out of 10 chapters. So I think that's pretty good. And what do I think? I don't know what's going to happen next. But I can assure you that I'll be there next month when another chapter drops. And I will be reviewing it again. So thank you for watching, listening, whatever you're doing. And comment and describe what you thought about this chapter if you read it. What do you think? What do you think about my takes? And I'll see you next time.